Hi, I'm Bunny. I'm with my husband, Senpai, and we're going to do the controversial parenting tag. So here are some controversial questions.
About parenting.
Well, let's start with the first one.
Okay.
Okay, number one, pro-life. Oh wait, obviously this is going to be controversial, so if you're sensitive to anything,
Fucking
bye.
deal with it, bitch.
Okay. Um, Number one, pro-life or pro-choice?
Both.
Well, I guess I would say pro-choice because I'm not. I think people misunderstand both of them. Pro-choice does not mean pro-abortion.
Yeah. They also don't seem to understand that the two are not opposed in any way.
Mm-hmm.
The way I put it is I don't think any woman should have an abortion, but it's not my place to tell them that they can't have an abortion.
It's not as straightforward as
My life, my body, my choice.
yeah, my body, my choice, and then like, oh, it's not murder because it's not really a human. We were talking about morality, and it's not black and white. It's
No,
definitely
it really
gray.
isn't.
So I don't think killing a human being, depending on the situation, is a bad thing all the time. Let me clarify why I don't think abortion and assisted suicide is wrong. I disagree with the death penalty because I view death as freedom, and it does not make any sense to me why you would punish criminals who have done extremely heinous and disturbing crimes with freeing their soul. When you die, you don't experience any pain or suffering anymore. That's why so many suicidal, depressed people crave death, not necessarily because they want to die, but they actually want the promise of relief that comes after death. I don't really understand why we have a negative view on death. There's so many worse things in life than dying. I really need to edit this because it sounds like murder, yeah! I'm also not saying that I condone people who murder. Uh, Obviously, the intent is a lot different. They're not usually murdering people trying to help them in some way. Usually, the intent is very malicious or disturbing. So, I'm not saying murder is okay. A little bit.
Why don't you just go like from what do you think about pro-life and then just cut straight to you going murder, yeah, and then go on to the next one.
Okay.
I could be like the director's cut version of it.
Number two, baby wearing. This is when you use a sling or some sort of device to wear the baby.
I bought you a sling like 6 months ago. I think.
So I know I know your opinion, but I'm like, are there actually people out there that are really against this?
Yeah, there are. There are like the midwife was saying, some people are like, you're too attached to that baby. So what the fuck are you talking about? It's a creature that literally needs me to live. How can you be too attached to it?
I think like that's the whole purpose of a baby for at least 2 years.
Yeah, this whole idea of like you should leave them to cry themselves to sleep. That'll teach them. It's like they're not crying because they want to ruin your day. They literally do not have the mental capacity to make that decision until they're about 2.5 to 3 years old. They're not being like, I'm going to be a dick to mum today. They're like, I am going to die. Give me attention.
Okay, so that's that. That was an easy one. Okay. Number three, circumcision. No.
Nope.
I actually come from a country where 90% of men are circumcised and it's expected, and like boys, like preteen boys, will bully other boys so hard, so harshly as well, if they're not circumcised by the time they're like 8, 9, 10, 11. Because, and in a lot of countries, babies get circumcised, but in the Philippines,
And they do it without anesthetic. Just throwing that out there. It's fucking barbaric, is what it is.
Yeah, first of all, the baby doesn't have a choice. Second of all, it's not necessary.
It's actually extremely harmful. The foreskin is there for a reason. It'd be like saying, your lips don't do anything, cut them off. Literally. It's there to protect the head of the penis. It's not an ancillary organ. It's not the fucking appendix.
I didn't finish making my point that boys in my country get bullied between the age of 8 and 11, and the reason for that is because while in most countries boys get circumcised while they are infants, in the Philippines they choose to have boys circumcised around the age of 8 as a coming of age ritual. And if you haven't had it by around that time, then society says there is something wrong with you. Also, a lot of health programs promote it as a procedure that makes you clean and sanitary. I have since learned that this is not the case, and you can be clean with a foreskin. Number 4, adoption.
I'd rather have a baby adopted than left in a hot care home.
Yeah, I have no issue with adoption. I notice a lot of people who are pro-life are really anti-adoption.
Let me put it
which
this
is
way.
Weird.
Why should it be any different with a person? Okay, I didn't actually adopt her. She was born in this place, but whatever. Why should it be any different with a person? If we're fine with looking after a cat, or a dog, or a hamster, a fucking scorpion, why wouldn't you... If people are supposedly so much more important, why would you just want to leave them to deal with it for themselves? Do you even brain? You have to hashtag that across the bottom as I say that part, by the way.
Okay, hashtag do you even brain. Yeah. So I don't understand this whole thing like, well, they're not my blood, so why should I care about them? It's not the same. I don't know if it's not the same. I've never adopted a human being before. And I've never, I'm pregnant now, but I never had a biological baby outside of me before either, so there's no way I could compare. But from my stance, it's like a human being is a human being.
Life is life.
Yeah. But murder's great!
Yeah. Murder butter.
Number 5, baby piercings.
As in actual babies or children babies?
2 and under. I actually saw pictures of myself and I had my ears pierced when I was a baby.
Not until they're old enough to make a decision. Even if they're not able to make an informed decision, if they're able to make a cohesive decision, they understand words and can speak, maybe. But no. Again, it's not something they can understand. They don't have any say in the matter.
Yeah, I had a very traumatic experience because I had my ears pierced when I was a baby before I could remember, but it closed up after a while, so I had it again when I was a toddler, and then my mother took me to this place and she didn't tell me I was getting my ears pierced, and I was like 3 or 4 and then it really, really hurt, so I wasn't anticipating that.
I don't know why you'd want to have your ears pierced as an adult. It hurts. So why are you going to do that to a kid? At least if you're an adult, you're crazy enough to make your own crazy decisions. I'm going to stab myself in the dick.
Number 6, breast milk versus formula.
Breast milk. It's been designed that way for millions of years. I don't think you're ever going to be able to get any better than it.
Yeah.
Possible, but unlikely.
I don't have anything against people who
I don't understand
rely
why
on
it's
formula
controversial either.
either.
I mean, there
If
are
you want to
many
use it.
reasons why you'd use formula over
Yeah.
breast milk. Maybe you're not able to.
You
do
have
properly,
HIV.
You're HIV. Yeah. You're dead.
You're dead, I guess.
Well,
The mom's dead, not. I mean.
some women can't produce milk. Some really do just find it easier that way. I'm not sure exactly how you figure that one out, but you know, I don't have anything wrong with it at all. But if you have the choice, I'd say go with the boobies. That's what they're designed for, you know.
So, yeah, breast milk, leaning towards breast milk, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with formula. I mean, there might be people who think that, you know, because it's not natural, it's not healthy. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure it's
Well,
fine.
it's not unhealthy. That'd be like saying, you know, you shouldn't eat cheese because milk is healthier. So what? I like bacon. No.
Number 7, cry it out method versus other. Other, I guess.
Although I don't like this idea of just leaving the baby to cry.
Yeah, I remember seeing a YouTube video of a midwife talking about, oh yeah, you can leave the baby in their room and they can cry for 2 to 3 hours. If I was crying for 2 to 3 hours, I'd probably be suicidal or something.
The thing that gets me about the cry, I'm sorry, but if the baby's crying for more than about a minute, I'm gonna get fucking annoyed. I just want them to shut up. Never mind the harm it's doing to them. It's gonna piss me off. Just go pick them up for fuck's sake. Plus, again, they don't really have the mental capacity to be like, I'm gonna piss off my parents, bitch.
But a lot of people think that way, so.
I mean, if they're like 3 or 4, you learn the difference. When they're throwing a tantrum, you know the difference. And you'll also notice, give them a couple of minutes and they'll stop.
Spanking?
Not a fan.
I'm not sure.
I'm inherently opposed to it. It's just not fun.
I feel like a lot of parents, like especially in the culture that I grew up, rely on it solely, which I do not agree with. Like, they don't even try to talk to them. Sometimes the kid doesn't even know what they did wrong, and then they're hit.
Yeah, you'll find that children respond a lot better to being taught to than you realise. They're children. They're uneducated, not morons.
Yeah. I feel like if everything was done, you tried to talk to them, you gave them warnings, you gave them time out, you took things away from them, you did everything else, and they still are being relentless. I feel like it's a last resort type of thing, but nothing that would ever leave a bruise.
No,
not because like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble with the cops. Because I'm saying not to leave a bruise because I think that's, you've done too much if you've hurt them to that point.
Well, if you spank somebody, an adult, you get arrested for it. Why should it be any different with a child?
You get
They're
arrested
a lot
for it
smaller.
for a child. Yeah.
Exactly. But the idea that people think, oh, it's okay, it's my kid, I should be allowed to do what I want. It's like, oh, it's okay, you're my brother, I should be allowed to fuck you in the ass.
That's a little
You know, you get my point.
Yeah. Okay. So that was spanking. Number 9, co-sleeping.
I'm guessing is that having 2 kids in the same room or 2 kids in the same bed?
Kids in the same bed. Parents with the kids on the bed.
I don't have a problem with that. It's not a clever idea when they're a very small baby because because they are so small and so fragile. You can roll over and crush them to death. I don't think it's sensible to do that. But as they get older.
Yeah, I co-slept with my parents for a very long time, and it was awkward because they still tried having sex, and it's like, okay, Home versus public versus private versus charter schooling. I don't know what charter schooling is. Let's just do home versus public versus private.
Fair enough.
Um,
I'm far more interested in the quality of the education than where it's done.
Yeah.
From an anthropological viewpoint, mingling with other children and other people is beneficial to development. So I generally go in favor of comprehensive, free education. See, we call it, for us, public school is the private one. I know it's weird. So the free version, the one that everybody else goes to.
Well, yeah, it as well. It depends on the school. Like the environment is important. The curriculum, how they discipline their children, how they deal with bullying, things like that are very important. What do they focus on? There are special schools like schools that focus on art and creativity and things like that. And then there's like the traditional schools, which are most schools. And I just care more about like maybe the turnout of the students and the environment as well. Like I wouldn't be really enthused if my child went to a school that had the most drug addicts come out of,
So not private schooling then, because that's where the drug addicts tend to be, because they have all the money.
Let's move on to number 11, vaccinations.
Yes.
Of course. Mostly anti-vaxxers are from like Western societies. So I've talked to people in Japan, and they are, economically doing really well, and health-wise they are doing really well. So one of the main reasons people in the Western world don't vaccinate is because they don't see it in their world, or they've never grown up with polio or diphtheria. But so have all these other countries who've had vaccination. So I don't know what it is about the West specifically.
Religion. Yeah, a lot of it comes back to religion. Not in the sense of that people don't want to vaccinate because of their religion, but it's the religious mindset. The idea of belief being more important than factuality. And in America in particular, there is a lot of religious lobbying trying to prove that scientists are evil, they're a tool of the devil, or whatever it is. So if you doubt them on one fact, whatever that is, evolution, then the way they get people to do that is by making them doubt science, not by doubting evolution, but by doubting science. So if you doubt science, then you think, oh, well, vaccinations are obviously there. That's part of this. And those evil evolutionists. So they must be wrong about that as well. And it's like, okay, you go and die from fucking polio. Do I care? Not only that, but we've lived in societies where we haven't seen these diseases for a long time because they've gone, so people aren't aware of just how damaging they can be.
But there are countries like in some areas in India where polio is still a thing, according to Bill Nye. So
yeah, there are a lot of places in the world where they have some really nasty diseases that they don't have the vaccinations for. We do, and we're squandering them. First world problems, yeah.
Oh, and vaccinations do not cause autism.
I'm autistic. I didn't have a lot of my vaccinations.
So people still believe that, even though it's been proven false over and over again.
Even though the guy who did it flat out admitted that he took money for it. One guy, one study. One. British as well, the dickhead.
Oh well. So that's vaccinations.
Also, what's wrong with autism? That's the biggest problem we have at the moment with autism, is it's all about trying to help the autist to fit in with society. You're literally trying to make them spit through their eye. It's not going to happen. And it's completely the wrong way of going about it. It is starting to change, but...
That mentality is still very prevalent, even today.
It's like trying to ask somebody who has an IQ of 3 to join Mensa. They are incapable of doing so. Instead, you have to meet them. You have to play to what they are capable of. And people who are heavily autistic, they can't do normal social things. They just cannot do it. So stop trying to force them, because you're just going to make things worse. You're just going to lead to heightened levels of frustration. Just let them do their own thing.
Yeah.
Interact with... You are capable, in the generalized, not you specifically, or even you specifically. If you are capable of changing, for example, somebody has no legs, they can't walk, they have to move on a wheelchair at a certain speed. You can run, they can't. You can slow down to move at the same speed as they can. They cannot speed up to keep up with you. Unless they get one of those really fancy, really speedy movies. But you can see what you did fine.
Okay, number 12 sounds pretty much the same as number 11. Medicating children. Do they mean like Ritalin and like ADHD drugs?
I think it depends entirely on the situation. In some cases, children are far too hyperactive and Ritalin helps. In other cases, they're just being a fucking child.
Yeah, so, yeah, exactly. So it depends on the child.
If the kid's schizophrenic, I'm gonna give them fucking laudanum. Well, not laudanum. What was it? Lithium. You know. If they're going and trying to strangle cats, then yeah, I'm gonna give the kid drugs to stop him from killing cats. If they're just being a bit rambunctious and like to throw mud up their own ass, well, more power to them, really. If they want to go and fucking eat worms or some shit, it's like, well. Okay, you'll soon learn not to if you just let them do it.
Yeah, there's this controversy that pharmaceutical companies, I'm not sure here in the UK, but in the US, make a lot of money from it, and they over-prescribe to children that don't necessarily need them.
Not just children, but people in general. Not as big of an issue here because a lot of it is still free. They don't pay as much for a lot of the drugs. So.
Okay.
You were talking about your cousin.
Yeah, my cousin. Like I met him when I was like, maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, and he was like a year or two younger than me, and his parents were in denial for a very long time. He was a very violent, very hyperactive child. Like, he's the type of child that would bounce up against the walls, make a dent in the wall with his head, and laugh about it for, like, 30 minutes.
Sounds a bit like me.
And he choked me one time because I wouldn't give him one of my binoculars. And I remember, like, my vision going dark and thinking I was about to die, pretty much. And he threw a dart at my face. It hit my face, but it didn't like stick or anything, thank goodness. And he got a bruise on his arm, which probably he got because he jumps over against the walls for fun and things like that, and he blamed it on me. So of course his dad hit me because of that. A lot of things. He was a very disturbed child, and you know, he's the type of child that makes you pro-choice, I would say, like if you met him. But because of medication, he has mellowed out, but it took his parents a very long time. Like, the school had to get involved because he was not doing so well. He was doing well academically, but he was really violent, I guess, to other people and endangering children. So they didn't have a choice when, you know, other people like schools getting involved. Yeah. So, yeah. So medication sometimes is helpful.
I don't see any difference between children and any other. I mean, if your cat is like, I don't know, if your cat's rabid, then well, if your cat's rabid, unfortunately, there's not much you can do other than die. There is no cure for rabies. But if you think your cat's about to develop rabies, you give them drugs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to cure it. Why should it be any different if the kid's like literally bouncing off the walls and trying to strangle the cat?
Number 13, cloth versus disposable diapers. Well, for convenience, I mean, I got a menstrual cup because I am very environmentally conscious in a sense, but I think we bought a not I think, but we bought a bunch of disposable diapers.
The stuff they make them out of these days isn't nearly as terrible as people make it. It never was. And you can get the disposable ones now that are reasonably priced and are biodegradable, like completely biodegradable. They'll just into compost. So in that sense, they're better for the environment than the cloth ones.
Yeah. But I completely understand. It's just that because poop is more gross to me than period blood. Period blood is actually cleaner than spit. So I don't actually I just bought like reusable pads because you can't use a tampon or a cup 6 weeks after you've given birth. But somehow women get pregnant during that time anyway because they're like, I want dick. But yeah, I bought some reusable ones because I'm not really bothered by blood, but like having to clean poop all the time.
The thing I'm more worried about when it comes to babies is their skin. And the disposable ones these days tend to be treated with balm, so they're healthier for the skin. You don't need to apply like Sudocrem or anything like that. Plus, they absorb the liquid far better than a toweling nappy does because it goes in and doesn't come out, or ideally. Some will always get out, whereas with the thing, they just sat there in their own piss, literally.
So, last question. Store-bought baby food versus homemade baby food.
Again, why is this controversial?
I don't know, maybe people were like, oh, it's not organic, or I don't know.
As opposed to what? What, are you feeding your baby rocks?
It doesn't really matter. I think I would say homemade because it's cheaper.
Yeah,
that's the only thing.
I'd probably go with homemade as well because, just give them a bit of what we're having. I mean, we're buying food anyway, so what fucking difference does it make if we're buying some sweet potato or mushing it up ourselves or buying it in a little jar? I'd probably do the homemade. It's a bit more work, so I can understand people who just want the jar. But it's the same stuff.
Convenience.
I go to the shop and buy carrots for me. Why should it be a problem if I'm buying carrots for the baby as well? I'm not growing my own carrots. I'm not growing my own pigs and slaughtering them and turning them into bacon. I buy it from a shop. We have that option now. I just farted.
Yeesh.
Guess that was good. Bitches. Bitches.
Yeah, so whether you homemade food or buy it from the shop, good for you.
More power to you, bitch.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's it. Controversial parenting tag. What did you think?
There was a whole lot of kerfuffle over nothing, really, apart from a couple of them. And even them, they're only controversial because people are idiots.
Is there anything you could think of that is controversial when it comes to parenting that you'd like to add in the video?
Corporal punishment is the only one I think.
Well, we already talked about spanking.
Exactly, yeah. That's the only one I really think is an actual big issue. Because that one's a bit more of a grey area. Same with medication, I suppose. But again, it should be based a lot more on the data, on the actuality of it. If the kid's hyperactive to the extent where they're going around and headbutting other kids from orbit and trying to strangle cats, then yeah, you do something about it. So
something I would like to add that's more recent nowadays, like parents who overshare on social media or get popular through sharing, having their babies have Instagrams and YouTube channels and like, yeah, you like Yebin. She, but her mom is in a way benefiting from her being so cute and adorable.
Agreed.
And things. So what do you think about that?
That's not really an issue of controversial parenting, though. That's a broader issue of exploitation in general. I don't personally think that Yebin is an example of a baby that's being exploited, but there are definitely people who try and do that. And again, that's not an issue of parenting, that's an issue of vulnerability and exploitation, and that's something I have a problem with. I don't have a problem with the principle. I put pictures of Belly's up online. I've had videos of her online as well, but I've always asked her if she wanted to be involved, and even though she was you could argue that at that age she didn't fully understand what she wanted. I mean, she's doing it herself now. So I'm not inherently opposed to the idea. I think it's just that one, what was it? The one with the ones where they were doing pranks on the kids, which was basically terrorizing the kid and making him cry constantly. That's wrong. But not because he's a kid. That's wrong because they were being dickheads.
They were being abusive.
They were being abusive to him. I don't care if the guy's 50 doing stuff like that. It's just not on.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a gray area, that sort of thing, like consent. Like I watch vlogs by this woman's name Bubs. She used to do beauty vlogs, but she pretty much focuses now on her children in her vlogs, and that's, I think, where most of her money is coming from. But her children are 3 and a few months old, so you could argue that, maybe years from now they'll look at their videos and, some of them are videos in the bath. She does censor the genital area, but like, how do you know they'll be okay with that when they're 10, 15, 20, 25?
Maru.
Yeah.
That guy is blatantly exploiting his cat to get popularity and money. Is that okay? Well, yeah, because the cat doesn't give a shit. So there's the thing. So if it's okay in that case, if the kid doesn't give a shit either, then what's the problem?
Yes.
The difference is the kid's going to change as they get older and grow into an adult. The cat's never going to give a shit. So, but the principle there is, as long as the kid's fine with it, I mean, because you could argue that, maybe they'll grow up 20 years from now, they might change their minds. Like, yeah, but they could be somebody who's 30, and 20 years from now, I could change my mind about the things I did. Have I exploited myself? Well, yeah, but I have nobody to blame but myself. So, you never know what's going to happen further down the line. And actually, we don't know. Maybe Maru will suddenly become hyper-intelligent, but like, what was human? I did not agree to these videos of my boxing antics. Remove them this instant. More. Could happen, but probably not in the case of the cat. The point I'm making is what I've already said, It's not an inherently evil thing to do.
That was the controversial parenting tag. This video is a lot longer than I intended it to be. Yay murder!
Hashtag yay murder.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Hashtag do you even murder, bro?
Do you even murder, bro? Yeah. So, would you like to say anything before we end?
Bitches.
Okay. Bye.